What's doing, everybody? Today is Tuesday, July 23rd. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle resigns after her disgraceful testimony before the House committee. Candidate Kamala Harris makes her first campaign debut. And actor Dean Cain joins me on the podcast today to talk about it all. I'm Alec Lace. This is the Alec Lace Show.
The American family is under attack. Parents are the underdog of this nation. Your children are being indoctrinated. That's right. Your children. They do not belong to the state. They do not belong to the school system. They belong to you, the parents, as a blessing from God our Father. So let's preserve, protect, and fight for the American family together. You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Alec Lace Show. I'm happy and honored, as always, to be here with you guys. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching the broadcast on Rumble, as always, please get down there, share the broadcast with everybody in your network, in your neighborhood. Don't forget to like the channel and subscribe if you are enjoying these broadcasts. I got a great program for you guys today. My friend, actor Dean Cain, is going to be here with me in just a little bit. If you missed out on any of last week's interviews, you got to go back and check it out. I had 7 guests join me on the podcast here last week. It was explosive stuff. 2 eyewitness accounts right there, 20 feet from President Trump when he was shot. Had Sean Parnell, Mayor Longo were here. Also had Navy SEAL Team 6 operator Rob O'Neill, Congressman Tim Burchett. Mike Benz was here with a brilliant analysis. John Amanchuku was here talking about all the craziness that's going on with the indoctrination of our kids in the classroom. So please flip it back to last week's episodes if you missed out. All right, so it's insane how fast the news cycle is moving. I mean, this is like Usain Bolt style fast, the way that the headlines are shifting and changing in the political world right now. It's hard to keep up, and this is why I'm telling you guys, if you're not on X, if you're not on Twitter, you're missing out. That's where you get all of the most up-to-date information. In fact, when President Biden, which we're going to get to in a little bit here, President Biden announcing that he was not going to seek re-election, people on Twitter found out first. They were the first ones to get that news. Mainstream media was way behind the curve. You're talking 10, 15 minutes behind the curve before they got it out there. So X is where you get things first, and that's where everything seems to change. Yesterday, the big thing that was going on was this Secret Service agent. She should be an agent. She should be the director. But the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheatle, testified before the Oversight Committee, before Congress, and we know probably less now than we did prior to her getting on there. She spoke more to the media and answered more questions for the media than she did for the congressmen and women. And I'll tell you this, they were united, the Democrats and Republicans, on the fact that she should be resigning. And very rarely do you have them from both sides of the aisle agreeing on something. Now, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle has finally resigned. And the reason she resigned is because of this. She should have resigned day one, right after the president's shot, go visit him in the hospital, and then the next move is, I resign because I failed my job. In my opinion, she should have already been fired and possibly should have already been arrested. What has happened here, and just by, if you watched any of this testimony, I'm going to play a couple of the clips for you here. It was an embarrassment to the American people. Her testimony yesterday, an embarrassment. She is working on our salaries. We are paying her salary, and she is completely incompetent. She refused to participate in the hearing, and she should not have a job of authority anywhere near President Donald Trump, and especially not be responsible for protecting people's lives. So this was a brutal takedown. I'm going to share a couple of clips from you guys here, for you guys here. You're going to hear from Congressman Pat Fallon, and then Nancy Mace, who was on fire, Congressman Jim Jordan. All these guys were on fire. Then you hear Congressman Jim Jordan, and then what I think was the most eye-opening, or any answer that we actually got yesterday, Congressman Eric Burleson, who I've had on the podcast several times. He was able to get her to come up with one admission that I think really sinks her career. So here we go. Take a look at the clips.
We have satellite images from the Butler Fairgrounds. Have you visited the site?
No, I have not.
9 days and you have not visited the site. You should have been there that night.
Have you provided all audio and video recordings in your possession to this committee, as we asked on July 15th, yes or no?
I would have to get back to you.
That is a no. You're full of shit today. You're just being completely dishonest.
Did he have a rangefinder?
Yes, he did, but may I explain that at a number of our sites, especially when you're at outdoor venues, a rangefinder is not a prohibited item.
Ms. Cheatle, you said that the buck stops with me, and I agree. I don't think you should resign. I think you should have been fired. Ma'am, you are a DEI horror story. I've told my daughter multiple times, my wife and my daughter, we talk to her all the time about how she's going to succeed in life. She'll succeed in life by achieving. Ma'am, you have not achieved today. You've let the American public down. If it was up to me, you'd be gone. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You know what it looks like, Director? It looks like you won't answer some pretty basic questions. It looks like you got a 9% raise and you cut corners when it came to protecting one of the most important individuals, most well-known individuals on the planet. A former president, likely the guy who's going to be the next president. It looks like you guys were cutting corners. That's what it looks like to me. Is that true?
I am here today because I want to answer questions, but I also want to be cautious.
You might want to, but you haven't answered, I don't think you've answered one question from the chairman, the ranking member, or me. Well, we got a lot of other people asking. We'll see if your record improves, but right now you haven't answered, I don't think, any question.
Have you used any encrypted app to communicate from your personal device?
I do, on occasion, use encrypted apps to communicate.
So you use some form of an encrypted app to communicate with people within the federal government, with local law enforcement? Whom are you communicating using the encrypted apps?
Many times it's with colleagues and associates.
So you're communicating with colleagues on a personal device?
There are times that the Secret Service, when we work internationally with some of our partners, that they don't have the same texting capability.
And you're not able to do that with your government-issued device?
Recently, we have been able to install some of those apps on government devices.
Okay. Let's talk about some of the things that we can get access to. I'm actually shocked that you are using your personal device and encrypted communication tools. I think that might be the most shocking thing that I've heard today. I didn't expect for you to say that.
All right, so there you go. A lot of good stuff. This thing went on for hours yesterday. A lot of stonewalling from Kimberly Cheatle. Didn't want to give up any information. Didn't want to answer the questions. But you heard Congressman Fallon. How have you not visited the site after 9 days? Right? You've never been to the site to get an idea, a sense for yourself of where things were, how they went down. How in the world could you not go to the site? You're going to investigate, or you're going to question your Secret Service agents, and you haven't been on the ground there, and you have no idea. The minute President Trump was shot, why weren't you automatically on a plane to get there? Immediately, or in a car, or a bus, or whatever they do to transport you around. Immediately after you hear the news he was shot, you should have been en route to the scene. How does the leader of the Secret Service not go to the scene of the crime? That makes zero sense to me. Also, too, here's Eli Crane, by the way. Here's former Navy SEAL Eli Crane, one of the best congressmen we have in Washington. He's here. He's up on the frickin' roof of where the shooter was. He's given his analysis and his report from the rooftop where the shooter was. But the director of the Secret Service couldn't find time to get there. She's at the RNC. She's traveling around, but she has no time to go to the actual scene of the crime. I found that very disturbing. Nancy Mace and said to her what I think we were all feeling as we were watching this thing and building up, you are full of shit. And she just said it. She was on fire throughout her whole testimony. Congressman Jim Jordan, I think he was correct. She was unprepared for this thing. She looked like she didn't care less. She already went in here with the mindset that she was going to stonewall, and that was obvious. And I think Congressman Burleson really hammered home a question that I believe Congresswoman Boebert was trying to get out of her, but she used a specific encryption app called Signal, and she denied using that. So when Eric Burleson rightfully picked up on that testimony and said, in a broader sense, are you using any encrypted apps on your personal and government-issued phone? And she says yes to both. She says yes, she's using encrypted apps on her personal phone to message colleagues. And she also says, now she doesn't directly say she's using the government phone. She says, oh, we just recently got encrypted apps on our government phone. So she very careful in the way she kind of speaks there. But Burleson gets this out of her. Who is she sending encrypted messages to on her personal phone? Colleagues. About what? Information? What information? People need to know answers to these questions. She got very elusive about it. If you watch, and I'll play it in slow motion here so you can see it next to me, the guy sitting directly behind her, the two guys there, but really this guy, look at his face as she answers that question. Him and the other guy, they look immediately behind them to somebody, and then here, the big sigh, and it looks like he says shit under his breath. Like wrong answer there. This woman is obviously hiding and covering up a lot of information, and it leads to more conspiracy theories about the shooting. One of the other things that was mind-boggling was when they asked her about the rangefinder that this kid had, she says, oh, that's not a prohibited item from an outdoor rally. That had to be the most shocking news, I would think, about how are you allowed to bring a rangefinder, something that's going to help you sight in your weapon in order to get a better shot? How are you able to bring that onto the grounds when you're not even allowed to? I just went to the thing in Detroit a couple of weeks ago where Trump was speaking. They were badgering the old ladies that were trying to get in with their Stanley Cups, the Starbucks Stanley Cup. They made a big announcement. One of the Secret Service guys like, just anybody with a Stanley Cup or one of these mugs that ain't coming in, we're going to confiscate it. Like real, man, I was like, man, these guys ain't fooling around here. You can't even bring a freaking coffee cup, like, you know. But you could bring a rangefinder in and that's okay? What the hell kind of, what is that all about? That was really, I guarantee they'd change that freaking rule right away if that was the case. So by her not being transparent, by her not doing a press briefing, she should have done a press briefing right from the stage where Trump was shot. First press briefing should have been right from the stage. I mean, like, I'm here, I'm on the ground, I'm on the scene, I'm here with our guys, we're going to try to get to the bottom of this, and we're going to give you the information as it comes in, and then update us every day. She hasn't given one press conference. She's given news media interviews, not one press conference to the American people. This is why you have 1.5 million different theories out there. Was there a second shooter? Was there a guy in the tower? You know, and then who was it? Charlie Kirk. Was it yesterday? He came out with the information. Here it is. I'll put it here. That the reason that they didn't have a Secret Service guy on the roof was it was too hot out. So first we heard that the roof was sloped. Now we hear it's too hot out. What's going to be next? It was too high up. They're scared of heights. They can't get up there. I mean, she keeps saying, oh, we had Overwatch. She didn't answer to whether or not there were drones in the air, aerial surveillance. She kept saying we had Overwatch. Well, you didn't say you had it. Where were the drones there? You know who had a drone? The freaking shooter had a drone. He was flying it around the fairgrounds. It's almost like to the point, again, we're going to get to this point where we're going to say, well, one of the Secret Service agents noticed them up on the roof and it was very hot out, so he rubbed them down with a little suntan lotion. They were afraid he was going to get crispy. I mean, it seems like it's getting more outrageous. And when you're not transparent with the people, these conspiracy theories are going to fly. And right now, everything seems to point more and more towards this was an inside job. I mean, it seems more logical. If you were going to be in a room, in a quiet room, say with like the CIA and the FBI, and you were going to try to come up with a way, devise a plan in order to shoot Trump and get away with it and make it look like a complete, just a fog and have no idea what was going on and misdirection and misinformation and disguise this thing so it never gets traced back to you, it would look exactly like it looked on July 13th. It would look the same way it did. None of it makes sense. And that's the point, isn't it? If this was just some lone gunman guy that did this on his own, we'd already have all the trail. Oh, here he was saying this. Here he was at that rally. Here's his social media saying this. It would be so cut and dry. Nothing about this is cut and dry. Nothing is straightforward about it. And it's like that by design. It's like that on purpose. One of the guys, too, I forget who it was, could have been one of the girls, I forget, who asked her, you know what happened to the Secret Service director when Reagan was shot? And she says, oh, he continued working. No, he resigned. How could you not resign? Your job is to keep the president or ex-president, whoever you're guarding. Your job is to keep the principal safe. The principal got shot in the face. And that's it. You're no longer the best person for the job. How could you argue you're the best person to be in that position when you failed your job? Oh, she kept saying, I take full responsibility. No, no, no. Full responsibility is handing in the keys and passing them on to somebody else. You don't get to say, I accept responsibility without accepting the responsibility. That comes with you resigning. And both sides were calling for her resignation. Now, here, let me say, okay, one thing I wanted before I move on from this. The Democrats obviously used this stage as an anti-gun movement to try to take down the Second Amendment. It was pitiful to watch, just wasting everybody's time with this bullshit from them that you were going to hear. Here's the most ridiculous one, and I wanted, now they were talking guns. Guns are bad. Guns are bad. Here is Congressman Connolly, Democrat, after he was ranting and raving about how guns are so dangerous. Listen to what he says right here. Take a listen to this.
I had an attack on my office a year ago. I know a little bit about violence, too. He came to kill me. When he couldn't, he beat one of my staffers 8 times with a baseball bat on the head. We live with the threat of violence.
They beat his staffer with a baseball bat. Now, notice the difference. When he talks previously, he talks about the AR-15 or he calls it an assault rifle, an assault weapon. But he doesn't refer to the baseball bat as an assault bat. This wasn't just a baseball bat. This became an assault baseball bat when the guy used it to beat the hell out of his staffer. So should we put a ban on baseball bats? They don't ever talk about that. It's always the gun. The gun didn't go up on top of the roof and shoot the president, okay? There was a person there who seems like more than likely was helped to get into that position. So anyway, the Democrats, as usual, made a mockery out of themselves. And one other thing, too, here I want to get to before I bring Dean Cain on to talk more about all this stuff. But Joe Biden, obviously the big news that broke, that changed the whole news cycle and flipped it, and hopefully doesn't take everybody's eyes off the prize of what happened in this colossal failure here. But Joe Biden announces he is not going to run for re-election, and he does it by issuing a statement on Twitter. He puts it on X. Completely unheard of. It makes zero sense. This guy didn't have the guts I don't believe that. Something is not right here about the way this was done. He doesn't say, hey, I'm going to address the American people tonight from the Oval Office. He doesn't call a press conference. Nothing. He just tweets it. And that's how everyone found out he's not running for re-election. Number one, if you've been one of these guys supporting Joe Biden, you got to feel like you just got punched in the gut. Here's the guy telling you for days, I'm not giving up. I'm fighting on. I'm not giving up. I'm going to beat Trump. He's telling you this. So a lot of people called from the step down, but a big part of the base was like, yeah, Joe, we could do it. We could do it. And then you just send out a tweet like a thief in the night. Oh, I'm not going to run. Something does not smell right about this at all. And now, instead of having democracy, a democratic way of selecting the new person that's going to represent the party, they're deciding for you. They're deciding Kamala Harris is going to get the delegates. I think more than 50% of the states have already handed their delegates over to Kamala Harris, despite the fact that 87% of Democrat voters selected Joe Biden. They didn't pick Kamala Harris. We know they damn well sure didn't pick her to run in 2020. So they're choosing for you. And if you remember in 2020, Bernie Sanders was the pick of the people. The people wanted Bernie Sanders. He was firing on all cylinders and winning that primary easily after the first 3 states. And then all of a sudden, the conspiracy started there. Kublacher dropped out. Buttigieg dropped out. And all of a sudden, they started to have a coalition around Joe Biden, who was doing miserably. And then all of a sudden, he became the front runner. It was like almost a conspiracy against Bernie Sanders. And then all of a sudden, he was out. People's first choice wasn't Joe Biden in 2020. And people's first choice ain't Kamala Harris. If you asked the Democrats who they wanted to pick for their representative, she would not even finish in the top 5. She'd be out. But they're going to shove her in there because that's democracy. All right, so we're going to, and again, we haven't seen Joe Biden. Joe Biden doesn't make this on a video call. He calls in auto call to the Kamala Harris campaign. And it sounds like it's completely made up in a farce. It almost sounds like a deep fake. He's not stuttering too, by the way. So it's like he calls into the campaign. He's got no stutter. What is it? COVID-19 has a cure for stuttering problems now. But he calls in. He doesn't do a Zoom call with Kamala Harris at her campaign rally. She has her first campaign rally. Here's a bit of Joe Biden calling in to the campaign rally and how bad this is.
I know yesterday's news was surprising and it was hard for you to hear, but it was the right thing to do. I know it's hard because you poured your heart and soul into me to help us win this thing. Help me get this nomination. Help me win the nomination, and then go on to win the presidency. But you're an amazing team. But we've got a great. I think we made the right decision.
It is so good to hear our president's voice. Joe, I know you're still on the call. And Joe, are you watching? You hear this clapping? Can you see it?
I'm watching. I'm watching.
I knew it.
Imagine how much more of this we're going to have to see with Kamala Harris being the candidate, which it seems like, in all likelihood, it's going to be. Boy, we're in for some craziness to happen. And I'm telling you this right now before I bring Dean on here. And I've said this before. It really feels like something disastrous is going to happen between now and November. It just seems and feels that way. And I would just say, be prepared for some craziness. And I think I wouldn't rule anything out. They've tried to kill Donald Trump on live TV and blow his head off. Nothing is off the table for what's going to happen between now and November. So be prepared, locked and loaded, protect your family, pray for President Donald Trump, pray for our country, because something radically wrong is happening right now in our world. Now, also, which seems like a month ago now, the RNC, the Republican National Convention, was last week. I thought it was, I enjoyed it. The speakers were great. I wanted to do a show about the RNC and just some more of it, but obviously the news cycle has flipped on us so much between Biden dropping out, the Secret Service director testifying before the committee. So there's a lot going on in the political world. And I originally reached out to Dean Cain here to get him to talk because Dean was there. He was there for the RNC, so I wanted to get his take and have some fun. Dean Cain, a friend of mine, honored to know him. And so I'm going to get his take on the RNC, but also get his take on all this stuff, the assassination attempt, Biden dropping out, Kamala taking the reins, and the whole bit. So Dean Cain, obviously a very, very well-known actor for playing Superman in Lois and Clark. He's a legendary actor. He's had few people hustle as much as Dean Cain does. This guy is in like a million different things. Like he's constantly, if you follow him on social, it's like he's taking a plane here, he's shooting this, he's constantly on the move, this guy. He's got quite the work ethic. But I'm honored to know him, and I'm going to bring him on now. And at the end of this interview, I'm going to announce my guest for Thursday. You're not going to want to miss out on that. It's going to be a great guest coming back to the show on Thursday. So make sure you stick around to find out who that will be. All right, here we go. Let's bring Dean on to the show.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
All right, joining me now, Dean Cain. Welcome back to the Alec Lace Show.
Alec, I'm always happy to talk to you, my friend.
Well, it's always an honor to have you here. And, I originally reached out because I wanted to get your take just on the RNC and the convention and the whole bit. But it seems like so much has happened and it keeps changing. So I want to go over a few of these things. Let's start with the RNC. You were there. What was the energy, the atmosphere while you were there on the ground? What was it like?
Well, I haven't been to any other conventions before, but from what I understand, from my perspective, I thought it was like unity and positivity and hugs for everybody. And, excuse me, all different kinds of people, Russell Brand, Amber Rose, Hulk Hogan, Dana White, Kid Rock, just a whole plethora of people. Riley Gaines, I saw her there. I didn't speak to her because she was, had people around her and stuff. But just a whole host of folks that you would never think, you would think this is the big tent party, total unity, a lot of excitement over President Trump having survived that assassination attempt only days earlier. I spoke actually just before he spoke at a private thing. Security was insane, as it should be. But the feeling around the RNC was literally a celebration, a party, and unity.
Yeah, and you mentioned Riley Gaines. I was kind of shocked they didn't have her be one of the speakers. I mean, she's such a really, really good speaker, and her topic is so important about, and I know Trump is on board with that message of keeping men out of women's sports. So I was a little surprised that they didn't have her get up there and just to give a speech.
Yeah, I guess they got a lot of slots to fill, and there's a lot of mouths to feed, a lot of mouths that like to talk a lot. So I guess she didn't. Maybe she didn't have time either. Who knows? Or maybe she had a short schedule on those particular days. it was only the big boys or big girls or whoever it happened to be. So who knows how that worked out? But I would have liked to heard her speak on the topic of men competing against women in sports.
Yeah, and I don't know how it was, I guess, when it was there, but the most exciting part to me was when Hulk Hogan came out. I mean, I thought the fact that he came out and did in character for the first 5 minutes and then went to himself. I mean, did the place just erupt when you were there when he came out and did that?
The funny thing is, when he was doing it in character, I was kind of a little uncomfortable going, come on, man, this isn't that time for that. And the fact that he brought it back was, played right into, I played right into his hands. Very cool. But it was, everybody was waiting for the superstar himself, President Trump, to come on, because it was the first time he had spoken since the assassination attempt, other than the little bit he spoke at the theater where I was with him earlier. So I was very excited for that. But yeah, when Hulk broke into the Hulkster, I was like, oh, come on, man. Not all. And then he switched it up and said, no, that's my character. I was like, okay, brilliant.
And I think what is important about that is the fact that he's a guy that has been on the sidelines and hasn't come out and fully thrown his support behind Trump. And my hope is that we see more people. Like, I know you've taken the heat for being one of the celebrities that's come out and being open about your being a conservative. And many other people in Hollywood have been kind of shunned because of their beliefs too. But I'm hoping that now, and it almost kind of feels like that, Dean, that right now, even guys in my job, people aren't as afraid to voice that they support Donald Trump anymore. And I'm hoping that we'll see more celebrities not be so quiet anymore and be able to come out and support Donald Trump in the open.
Agreed 100%. There's a number of us that came out early, said we supported him, and suddenly we became Nazis and xenophobes and racists, and we should not have a job and blah, 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 which is insane, because I would never do that to the other side. If someone didn't agree, it's not like I wouldn't hire George Clooney or work with George Clooney. He's a buddy of mine anyway. Or Rob Reiner, who I think is a fantastic director. I just can't stand his politics. And I like the guy personally. Bobby De Niro, I can't stand his politics, but, great. Sean Penn, who I grew up with, don't like his politics, love the guy. So I'd work with him in a heartbeat. So people need to get past that. And the idea that just because you disagree politically, and it's gotten so tribal, it's ridiculous. I hope we can sweep that under the rug and move forward as a unified country.
Me too. And somebody for me is Stephen King. I cannot stand his politics, but I can't stop reading his books. Like I'm
really good.
That guy is a great writer. So it's like it kind of, and now because obviously he's got like the Trump derangement syndrome, it spills over into some of his writing, and you kind of raise your eyebrows, roll your eyes when you get to that part.
Like, get past it.
We get it, right, and get back to the story. But that part, I do hope that we can sort of move forward with all this stuff. What was the sentiment there on the ground at the RNC with J.D. Vance? Obviously, that was another big headline that happened. Trump picked his vice president. What kind of was the take on J.D. Vance getting the selection?
I think it more was like at that point in time was sort of because everybody's buzzing and yipping and yapping and talking about everything. I think that point in time it was sort of a foregone conclusion that he was the front runner at that point in time, and so many things sort of popped up. Secret Service showing up to pick him up from his house, things like that. So I think the cat was sort of out of the bag until he announced. But listen, young, 39 years old, extremely intelligent. Yeah, he wrote Hillbilly Effigy, and he wrote about his upbringing, and then he joined the Marines, and he made himself into a very successul guy. I love the fact that he and Vivek Ramaswamy were like in law school together back in Ohio. What a class that must have been. Two superstar guys. I love Vivek too. So I think he's got himself a really smart, articulate, young vice presidential candidate that I think is it certainly does nothing to hurt the ticket. I'm glad he didn't try to go for, there's guys that were great, but I'm glad he didn't go for Burgum. I don't think that would have been a great pick. I thought maybe Vivek. I thought maybe Sarah Sanders would be there. So hard to say, but J.D. Vance is a super smart guy, and he is going to, I can't wait. I wanted to see him debate Kamala, but oh, well, I guess she'll be the presidential candidate now. We'll see. I mean, I said to you right before we started this, that my friend Carl Higbee said, what a year this week has been. My gosh, so much.
Yeah. Yeah, we've experienced a year's worth of news in just a few days here. It's unbelievable with everything that's going on. And I wanted to say, too, with J.D. Vance and Vivek, you say that class. What a class. Imagine being in that class, having a successful career right now and feeling like a failure. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, look what these guys are doing.
I've just got my own law firm and this and that. But these guys are, helping to run the free world, I hope.
Yeah, crushing it. And so, all right, obviously, the biggest news was Trump was almost taken out here. This was one of those moments where and I've been saying this, I had Rob O'Neill on here last week, kind of trying to get the breakdown of the failures of the security stuff. But it was really, I had Sean Parnell, who was right there 20 feet away from the president when he got shot. It almost felt like that 9/11 kind of feeling where I was sucked into the news cycle so much, like it consumed me for like the first 24 hours when this thing happened. Where were you when you found out that that's happened, and what was your take on it immediately?
I was sitting right here writing at my computer. I had the news on. I was watching the beginning part of his speech, but then I got involved in my writing, and then my mom called me. And she called me, and she was crying. And she said, "Is it true? Is it true?" I said, "What?" She said, "President Trump has been shot." My blood, like my heart stopped. And I whipped over the TV and just rewound it right to where he was speaking. And then I watched it unfold. And it was shocking. 9/11 was shocking, obviously. I was in Spain and I watched that happen, and that was catastrophic. And you knew tons of people died. I have lots of friends who worked in those towers. So I thought I was watching 35 of my friends die as it happened. Here, President Trump is also a friend, and I have great respect for him. And it was that same hollow, just ugly, oh my God, feeling that you can't believe this took place. But when he stood up, and my mom, I had to call her back because she's like, she wasn't watching it. I think she was driving, so she wasn't able to get to a phone or TV or anything. When I saw him stand up and fight, and I saw that he was, clearly cognizant of what was going on, and that it was only a smaller wound that didn't blow off the back of his head or something like that. I was like, he's okay, because he's yelling, fight, fight. And Evan, I'm going to mess up his name. I think it's Vucic. Is the guy who took the picture for the AP. I got to meet him at the RNC. That picture is one of the most iconic photos we'll ever get of a president in the middle of strife. That was unbelievable. But yeah, that was a shocker. Huge failings by Secret Service and law enforcement there. I can't call it any other way. Sean Parnell and Rob O'Neill, both friends of mine, both guys that I would put in charge of my security in a heartbeat. Neither one of them would ever let that happen. So it's going to be interesting. Kimberly Cheatle was on Capitol Hill, and she spoke, and that looked terrible, and she didn't give any answers. I don't understand what was going on there. But as the time goes on, we'll hopefully get more information. I don't know, this administration, for being the most transparent, and they are so not transparent. The things they've done are the most authoritarian, fascist, crazy stuff. And people throw those words around like they're nothing these days. But they're everything, because it's really being shown in the Democratic Party. I mean, where's George? Oh, and where is President Biden? Where is he? We haven't seen him. He issues a letter that he is withdrawing from the race on a Sunday afternoon, not on White House letterhead with a digital signature. It's the craziest thing ever. I need proof of life, my friend. I need proof of life.
I think we all do. And again, to Newsmax, Carl Higbee there, him and his colleague, they broke this on Friday, saying this was what was going to happen, and they were dead on. I mean, their sources were correct. And yeah,
did you see Carl's face though when he said that? Carl was like, "Whoa." It was a shock.
And then later that day, Biden had a tweet saying he wasn't dropping out. Someone was saying, "Oh, they had bogus information," but it turns out they were right. But to issue it out on Twitter like that, to make the statement, was very, very odd. And then we hear reports that his staff found out through the Twitter post. So it's like, why in the world would he make the announcement that way? It seems like they're hiding. And again, Kimberly Cheatle, just to get back to her, testifying before the Oversight Committee, she made it worse. I mean, she made matters worse. Everything around this thing, there's more questions than answers. And if you were going to be somebody that was going to pull off a job like this is exactly how you would design it, where there's all kind of smoke and mirrors and you have no idea what's actually happening. So it really makes me question whether this thing had some kind of inside job, or there was a foreign interference, or something more than just a 20-year-old punk kid that managed to defeat the Secret Service. It doesn't seem possible.
It's frightening, but I mean, there was clearly they didn't have enough agents assigned, and I mean, either one of those guys, Rob O'Neill or Sean Parnell, would never have allowed. I saw Eli Crane up on top of that roof as well, another Navy SEAL. Although Parnell wasn't a Navy SEAL, but Outlaw Platoon. Read his book. I'm sure you have. Phenomenal, and what he's been through. Holy smokes! But so those guys would never allow it as an advanced team. They would never allow a shooter to be within 150, within a mile. That's craziness with that kind of line of sight. It's the horrible failures. No doubt about it. Heads are going to have to roll. The scary thing is that we as Americans, and you just said it, like, we don't know what's going on. Smoke and mirrors. None of us believe the government. No one understands what's really happening. And to have that be the situation, look, I think it's important that Americans don't trust government and question everything to begin with. But I think that's just a great place to be in your mind, because anybody who blindly goes along with government, and then you're a lemming. So we as Americans have always been, don't trust the government. Even the Reagan days, 9 scariest words in the English language. I'm from the government and I'm here to help. And 100% correct. So I'm glad that people are questioning everything, but it shouldn't be to this degree. This is insane.
And it's like these things happen right in front of our faces on live TV. The Kennedy assassination happened 60 something years ago, whatever it is. We still have questions about that. 9/11 happened in front of our faces. We still have questions about it. This Trump assassination attempt happened right in front of our face. And it's like, we still have all these questions about it. I'll be swimming across the Hudson River with the SEALs again next month. Yeah, I did it last year. For me, it's like the biggest physical challenge I've done in my life. So, but for these guys, as you can imagine, for them, it's nothing. But if I was President Trump, there's so many retired former Navy SEALs, special operations guys that would be dying to go there and help him out. If I were him, those are the guys I would bring in right now and say, hey, you're going to be my personal protection here, because it seems like obviously, the fact that President Trump just Saturday, a week after he was shot in the head, gets up there at a rally again and has the confidence that he's going to be okay, man. I don't know if I could do that. I mean, he just seems to be able to have a faith that is unshakable.
Well, I tell you what, after that assassination attempt, the security at the RNC was pretty darn tight. I'm not going to lie. It was pretty darn tight, and they were taking it very seriously. So I think they perhaps have a larger contingent of Secret Service. I guess he had 3 personnel standing by. I mean, and Jill Biden was at a luncheon in Philadelphia, had 12. I don't know. As opposed to, you also have all the Homeland Security folks there and all local PD people. And I think that they were lax clearly, and now they're not going to be again. That will not happen again. But yeah, I'd bring in a Rob O'Neill or Sean Parnell to head my protection team in a heartbeat. Those guys are warriors, man. And they know it all. They know all the angles, all the ups and downs and other possible ways. And yeah, I wouldn't, he can't get a private security force, because then everybody else would scream, it's the brown shirts or whatever. So it's got to be done through our channels. But I'd get those guys involved somehow.
Yeah, definitely. And it just seems like, too, just because she testified in front of the Oversight Committee, and the reason why all these different theories are flying around out there is because they haven't been transparent. I forget which congressman was saying, it's like, you should have been there day one with a press conference and had a press conference every single day to update the American people. This isn't like just some incident that happened. This is a major historical event that took place, and they're keeping everybody in the dark. And of course, you're going to have second shooter theories, the tower, inside job. You're going to have every theory play, because you're not shutting any of it down. You're not being transparent, and it just makes it more suspicious. So the American people, man, we deserve so much better from the people that we are paying the salaries of.
No question. I mean, even at the RNC with all those senators, Senator Crane, other senators on there, Marsha Blackburn, they were grilling her. Now people didn't like the way that looked, and so on and so forth. But they are lawmakers. Our senators don't know what's going on. So if they don't know, what the heck do we people know? Nothing. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, for the people, not the elites who keep their little quiet, group of folks, doing the underhanded stuff, like coming out and pushing President Biden out and all that sort of stuff. It just feels really wrong. And I'm praying that President Trump gets in there and just starts to clean house, because I believe him if he says something.
It almost seems like that. We're praying that Trump gets in there, but it's like they almost killed him. They've tried putting him in prison. They've done everything possible. It just makes me feel like something big is coming before November. It's almost like it's a no-fail mission. They cannot allow him back in the White House, because they feel like if they do, the jig is up and they're screwed. So it just seems like something terrible is set to happen here before November. And I pray that I'm wrong, but it just has that feeling.
I pray that you're wrong too, my friend. And I think that, Don Jr. and Eric, they feel that same feeling. And, I think they're going to make sure everything is tight around Pops and around, President Trump. And I think there are a lot of other patriots that are very tight about that. And I think he's going to be well protected. I pray you are wrong. I do feel that crazy feeling they'll do anything to keep him out. And even when he gets in,
4 more
I fear.
years.
Oh my gosh, I fear. So his security needs to be top notch because there's some people who are right crazy right before our eyes, not even hidden. I mean, there are people in Congress and Senate who say stuff that I am shocked about, divisive stuff. You see all these people talking about how they wish the shooter hadn't missed and had been a little bit better. That stuff just makes my stuff. Listen, if it had been the opposite and they try to take a shot at President Biden, I'd still feel the same way. It should not happen. Never should be the case. I would never want him assassinated or anything. That's crazy, crazy talk. These people should be investigated and charged if that's the case. We don't. That's not a free speech issue. That is not a free speech issue. Wishing death upon a presidential candidate or a person that's easily incitement.
And I agree. If this had happened to President Joe Biden, I would have been just as sucked into the news as I was on this because it's because of the historical factor of it. But you do have the and you've seen it because you're a high profile guy. You get it. You're a racist. You're a bigot. You get all this slander from these nut jobs that are out there that have been just radicalized by the media, by the Democrats that continue to tell these people even after the fact that Trump is like Hitler, that these people are like Nazis, and to do that. They keep pushing the Project 2025, even though Trump has already dismissed that. They keep pushing the lie about it. And those lies are dangerous. And we see these people, they are maniacs that are out there. And it's like, you wonder how many more of them have been radicalized by the left. And it seems like they're doing nothing to stop that.
I think they're encouraging. You can do a supercut of Democrats doing that for 20 minutes straight. If it's Pelosi, Kamala Harris, the girl from Maxine Waters.
Maxine Waters, yeah.
Yeah, you can see all that stuff over and over and over again, them calling for violence and not even like tepidly endorsing it, saying that they should be out there doing that. There should. I don't know why there isn't unrest all over the country. Blah, all that sort of stuff. I mean, and also goes to it doesn't matter your race, creed, or color. By the way, you are a Nazi, you are a racist, you are a homophobe, you are a xenophobe. If you're Byron Donalds, if you're me, if you're you, if you're Wesley Hunt. It's about your perspective. And if you happen to be Republican or conservative, you're all those things, you're far right. Just because you believe in the right to bear arms, the Second Amendment to the Constitution, oh, you're far right. You're a gun nut. All they're doing is going for labels, which is divisive and ridiculous, and means they have no argument. If you resort to ad hominem attacks, you've got no argument. You've already lost.
Yep. And even guys like Larry Elder's been on here a few times. They call him the black face of white supremacy. Imagine doing something like that.
Greatest LA Times, headline ever. The black face of white supremacy. I know Larry very well. I was one of the two speakers, myself and John Voight, when he got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I'm glad he ran for governor, but he knows the facts, man. You can't out-talk Larry Elder. And I'd love that I don't love that they did that, but doing that just illustrates how ridiculous they are. And it's all about inclusivity, and we are all inclusive and very tolerant. We're tolerant of everything except for a differing opinion.
Yeah, it is. It's sad to see, and hopefully we can get, like we always say, we hope we can get some kind of unity. These Trump derangement syndrome people, they're never coming back. But it's like the people that are just on the left of the aisle, we can win those people over, and we can get back to some kind of a civil discourse, which would be great if we could have that once again. And then obviously we talked about the Trump assassination. He picks J.D. Vance. He has the RNC, speaks again. We had the oversight committee. Joe Biden, we talked about stepping down. Now we see Kamala Harris. Now the people primary picked Joe Biden. They didn't vote for Kamala Harris, but they're just going to implant Kamala Harris. It seems like, it's not official yet, but it seems like that's the way they're going. People are throwing their endorsements around her. I don't know if that's going to be it, but how do you see this Trump versus Harris playing out towards November?
Well, the first thing is if it ends up being Trump versus Harris, because who knows if she's it. I mean, Pelosi backed her, and we haven't seen the president. It's just been weird. It's been a very weird period of time. I think, she washed out of the Democratic primary in 2020 horrifically. She was the first one out. She's very unlikable. California voters don't like her. When a Democrat comes out of California, they tend not to do great nationally. But if a Republican comes out of California, i.e., Nixon or Reagan, they do very well, nationally. I think she is very unlikable. I think the more she speaks, the worse she sounds. I mean, there are supercuts of her saying absolutely nothing. You know, I'm sure she can be whatever she wants to be, unburdened by what has been, which is very important because the passage of time, by the way, is a very important as well. I mean, that these kind of ramblings, and this isn't somebody who we might say, you know, is gaffe prone like President Biden has always been, even though he showed some clear signs of cognitive failure. President Trump likes to go on and on and on. That's just who he is. You know, that's not a, you know, now the new thing for them is he's too old. He's the oldest. If you see this, it turned into like they got the memo. He's the oldest man to ever to run for president, other than, of course, Joe Biden, who last week was totally fine and it's totally great. Age is not an issue. They flipped that around. So it's really shocking. And it's embarrassing to me, like, to look at this and watch these politicians and people say these things that I know are outright lies. Like even when Biden was pushing, you know, very fine people and inject bleach into your arm, those are clear lies. And everybody who knows anything about it knows that. So how can you respect someone who says those things? I think that stuff needs to get tossed out of our politics, or at least they need to get embarrassed. But the media is the one who has to hold these people feet to the fire. So when they say things that are wrong, you know, Kamala Harris talking about going to the border. Well, we've been to the border. We've been to the border. And then Lester Holt says, but you've been to the border? I haven't been to the border, but I haven't been to Europe either.
Yeah.
What? You know, you're the border czar. You know, so I think Harris versus Trump, I think it's going to be a Trump crushing. Listen, I never put anything past the Democrats to pull some, you know, there's now that Biden dropped out of the race, what are they going to do with all those ballots they probably already filled out?
Yeah. Yeah, the dead people have to switch their vote now, right?
That's right. Fortunately, they didn't mail them out yet.
What it does, though, too, is it kind of takes away a lot of the talking points. Now the Hunter Biden laptop stuff goes away. Now that's no longer a focal point. The Ashley Biden diary and the Biden crime family, they kind of now take those out of the spotlight. Not that they're really done with, because there still needs to be answers on a lot of that stuff. But now it's kind of in the backlog. Now we have to focus on a whole new set, which is unfair to Donald Trump as well, because Donald Trump, here he is, he's preparing for a run against Joe Biden. That's been his whole campaign and his push. And now they've kind of pulled the rug, even though the Democrats had to know. They lied about how cognitive this guy was. They all lied about it. You could see from the debate, we all found that out, that they've been covering for him until they almost set him up to fail. It almost seems that way, right? It seems like they knew he was going to flop on the debate. That's why they had it so earlier than any other presidential debate in history. It was kind of like maybe a last audition for Joe Biden to see if he could do it or not, and they kind of hung him out to dry. And what Jill Biden has done and the Biden family has done to Joe Biden is disgraceful, that they would let him go out like this. Whether you like him or not, you should never have let a loved one go down like this.
Agreed, 100%. 100%. The thing about Kamala Harris, though, is she's part of this. So it comes down to policy, regardless if it's Biden or Harris. It still comes down to policy. She's been there for the last 3.5 years, overseeing this debacle, you know, these horrible policies. The reason inflation's up, real inflation's up 20% since they jumped in. Oh, it's only 3 point something now. Yeah, more than it was. You know, so it's up over 20%. People know when they go to the grocery store, it's the same people in power. It's still Kamala. It's every policy that took place in this administration, Kamala Harris has to own and defend. You know, how'd she do as border czar? Holy Rudnick. How did she do as, no, I'm going to go down and fix those reasons why people are leaving. No, you're not. And you didn't do anything. So she has a record as vice president, which is the same as President Biden's, which is what's going on currently in this administration. So in that sense, Trump just has to compare policy, and that's it. And then there's already been a ton of opposition research on Kamala Harris done because, you know, she was a high profile person. It's the reason she was the first person out at the Democratic primary in 2020. She's not likable. She is, you know, what do you think? You just fell off a coconut tree? I mean, like stuff like that. You can't take her seriously. You know, she's a rambler, and doesn't make any sense. It's word salad. So I think the less President Trump talks, and the more succinct he is, the more presidential he looks, and let her dig her own. Well, I don't want to say grave in these days. Let her dig her own hole, because you say anything that way these days, and you're calling for assassinations, and I am not in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point too. Even if Trump doesn't have to go, because it's going to look, they want it to look like he's going after a woman. So anytime he attacks her, they're going to hype that up. So if he just keeps it to the policies, and you're right, the policies is the reason why they're going to lose. Forget about character. It's the policies that have failed. Trump's have worked, and that's really what he's got to hammer home here. Who do you think, if it is Harris, who do you think she taps as the VP pick? Who do you think she's going to go with? Your boy out there, Gavin Newsom, or what?
Well, first of all, you are right. Anytime she gets attacked from now on, they're going to say racist, sexist, bigot, whatever. All that's going to come flying out. Forget that she's a presidential candidate, right? That she's running for president. Listen, all attacks are possible when you're running for president, and that's just the way it is. I don't know who she's going to pick. I don't think she can pick Gavin, because then you're Californiaizing the entire nation, and his policies are very easy to pick apart, because I left the state because of his policies. The reason that SpaceX just bailed as well out of California, because the ridiculous policies. They're passing some of the most ridiculous laws. So Newsom can't do it. Plus, it would be weird, because if he or Kamala Harris, one of them, were a presidential candidate, everyone would pick Newsom over her. They would think it's weird that the vice president candidate is more the centerpiece than the president. Yeah, so I don't think that's going to happen. Not Newsom. Really hard to say. If she does something and picks one of these governors, Shapiro out of Pennsylvania, something like that, or Bashir, they're so not well known. If you pick someone like to win a state, they're so not well known nationally. They might help them get across a state or something like that. But the deep bench is on the Republican side, not on the Democratic side, because they froze everybody out. I don't know who. Nancy Pelosi, maybe she picks Pelosi as her VP. Sorry, I had too much fun with that one.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see. But yeah, I don't know who they pick. I know Michael Douglas was on The View, and he was saying, this was the second interview. The first one, he said Biden was sharp as attack. Then he goes on The View and says, yeah, I'm concerned about it. But he also said that Democrats have a deep bench. And I'm thinking, he's like, a lot of heavy hitters. And I'm thinking, who are these heavy hitters? Who's the deep bench? Like on our side, on the Republican side, you can hammer out 5 to 10 names that are going to make a run next year. Who is it on the Democrats other than Newsom and maybe one or two of the governors that you said, Bashar, who nobody knows, Pete Buttigieg? Like, who is the deep bench? I mean, I think we play.
Well, Buttigieg, I could see that for sure, because he's done a great job as our transportation secretary. There's been no hiccups or foibles while he's been in there. Holy crap. I mean,
it's going to be wild, because 2028 is going to be the first time we're not going to have Donald Trump in the picture. So it's going to be a wide open field. So it's going to be so interesting to see. And I love our lineup against theirs.
Yeah, well, that if President Trump gets reelected in November, then I feel like the Republicans, because then he's going to institute the policies that I want instituted. And I think America is going to do wonderfully in those 4 years. So I think, if it's J.D. Vance or one of these other 5 or 10 people that you're thinking of right now, or someone else who pops in, there's at least 5 or 10 young, extremely smart, really well-spoken, fantastic people. If it's J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy, all of these guys are phenomenal. And I think more will emerge. My own governor in Virginia, where I serve as a deputy sheriff, he is phenomenal as well. Glenn Youngkin, saw him. He's still 6'7", by the way. So I look up to see him every single time.
He's like Barron Trump.
Yeah. What a great leader he's been for Virginia. So there's a really deep Republican bench, no doubt about it. Deep, young, intelligent, and we got plenty. I don't see anybody in the Democratic Party that's popping up. I don't see anybody. Pete Buttigieg, I could see him being her vice presidential candidate. I can see that happening. And he's decently well spoken, sure, but he has a record now as transportation secretary. More than just being Mayor Pete from South Bend, Indiana. There's a difference now. I don't know, CrowdStrike this last week, just after the RNC, didn't help a lot of people get home. Didn't help a lot of people doing banking. Didn't help. Apparently some voting was screwed up in Arizona too, which is odd, because I thought those things weren't connected to the internet. But what do I know? Just a normal human being.
Conspiracy theorist is what they would call you for that one.
Of course,
So,
of course.
Well, listen, we blew through all these. Last thing, this has nothing to do with politics or nothing like that. I wanted to ask you about it because, I'm somebody, I'm at a point, I've told you this before, I'm not afraid to admit that I was a Beverly Hills 90210 fan in high school. I'm at a point where I'm secure in that. But the passing of Shannon, the passing of Shannon Doherty kind of got lost in the sauce with all these headlines that have been going on. And had this not been happening, it would have been a much bigger deal in the headlines. But I was so sad to see. I know she was sick for a while. You worked with her back on that show many years ago when you guys were just kids yourselves. What was it like working with Shannon Doherty, and what could you say about her as a person?
Well, at the time, the show 90210 was the biggest show in the world when I worked with her then. And it was just wild, because these are kids that are all close to my age. I was older than most of them by a few years. To have lost Luke Perry and now Shannon is tragic, awful at such young ages. The difference between Luke and Shannon was Luke was just happened right now, boom, done. And Shannon has been ill fighting cancer for a long time. Tough to watch her fight because, you got the fight one and then you do and then you don't. It's up and down. And my heart breaks for her because she's a different person than the young, sort of brash person she was when I was shooting 90210 to the person that she was having survived cancer the first time. One of my best friends growing up is like her best friend too. And it's just, I know that he's been through the ringer with her, and it's just tough to have that situation happen. And I'm sad that she passed. I hope she is happy and smiling and in God's arms in heaven. And it's a heartbreaker.
Yeah, well said, Dean. What do you got to close it out here? What do you got coming up? What projects you're working on? What are we going to see from Dean Cain here in the coming months?
Man, I got too much going on is what I got. I've got about 4 or 5 movies left to shoot this year for sure. So I'm going to film all those. I've got a graphic novel out called Dean Cain, All-American Lawman on bigmancomics.com. Go check that out. It's almost completely sold out. We're going to do volume 2 shortly. I've got another movie that I wrote, produced, directed. Want that to get out this year. I just have tons. I've got 6 more that I'm writing right now, working on writing, that I'm producing as well and putting together. So it's a busy time. And just like how we changing over things here in our government, things are changing over in Hollywood too. There are, I make these faith-based movies. There's a bigger audience for that now. I've got God's Not Dead, We the People. Yes, no, I say that all the time. I keep messing it up. God's Not Dead, In God We Trust is coming out September 12th in theaters everywhere. I was talking about that at the RNC. That's a lot of fun. It's my character from the first God's Not Dead comes back, and he's a power broker of sorts, which people don't realize how that works in our system. They should understand, because the power brokers are the ones that pushed out Joe Biden just now too, if you ask me, and they're going to just institute a new candidate. So I play a guy like that. Not the most lovable, but I play him in God's Not Dead, In God We Trust. At one point, there was a We the People. So I'm just I get excused for this. And then I have just tons of projects. That's the fun thing about being an actor. It's also a terrible thing about being an actor is as soon as you finish your one job, you're out of work. And then you're looking for your next job, or you got a ton of things you got lined up and you don't know if any of them are going to go. That's what happens in this business, which is why I want my son to be a computer tech genius.
How is Chris doing?
He's doing fantastically well. He really is. We moved from Malibu, California here to Henderson, Nevada, real close to Vegas. We love it. It's been nothing but fantastic for us. My parents are 5 minutes away. I see them all the time. Maybe even a little too much, but no, I think it's impossible. My parents are wonderful, so we're doing well. My son is fantastic and very happy, and I feel extremely blessed, even though we're in these crazy, tumultuous times.
Yeah, awesome. I love the hustle. Every time I see you on social, it seems like you're on a plane headed somewhere. You're constantly busy. I'm grateful that you took the time here. Love to have you back on again. Dean Cain, thanks for giving me a few minutes of your time today on the Alec Lace Show.
Alec, I'm always honored to be on, my friend.
All right, honored to have my friend Dean Cain on the podcast here. What you guys think about the interview? Hit me with a comment down below. Like this video here, like this live stream if you're enjoying it, and please don't keep it a secret. Share it with everybody in your network and in your neighborhood. Let them know about what's going on here. Dean Cain, he's plugged in, and again, I felt the same way about Hulk Hogan. By the way, what he talked about there, like I was saying to my wife, we were watching this, and I was excited that Hulk was going to come on, and I was saying to my wife, who do you think we're going to get, the character or the real guy? And I was kind of disappointed, like Dean said too. Like, yes, it's fun to see him, and I love that he tore the shirt it off and he had the Trumpomania, yes. But I'm so glad and grateful that he broke character and spoke from the heart about his support for Donald Trump. It was so needed, and I do pray that we have more and more celebrities that do step forward and aren't afraid now to speak up and say, yes, I do support President Donald Trump. And I think you kind of get that feel right now in this country that more people aren't afraid to say they support Donald Trump, to say that they never got vaccinated, right? To say that they don't want men in the girls' locker room. I think people are becoming more not afraid of saying that. So I think it's very important. So again, honored to have Dean Cain on. Listen, the news cycle is absolutely crazy right now, I'm sure. And I'm an advocate for X. Get on X. Stay on Rumble. Listen to the shows here on Rumble because they're all great. You get the long-form content, and you get to take a deeper dive into some of these issues. And listen, there's a lot of competition right now. Because the field is wide open. And I appreciate you guys taking a few minutes of your day here to spend it with me. I'm trying to do the best I can. Again, I'm not one of these guys that's been plugged into politics my whole life. I'm not a TV-trained analyst or none of that. I'm a regular blue-collar worker, a husband, father of 4 kids. I work midnights on a railroad. And I'm doing what I can to support my family, and I'm doing what I can to support this country and my candidate, President Donald Trump. And that's why I'm here. So I'm not giving it to you from any kind of skilled political observation. I'm giving it to you just as you are, as just an American citizen who's in love with the United States of America and is tired of seeing our country get raped by this Democrat, deep state, communist, globalist, Marxist movement that has taken over our country. And I'm doing what I can to fight back. I love the fact that so many of you have joined me in this fight. I ask you to keep giving me your support. Do what you can. Share this podcast with everybody in your network, and let's grow it as much as we can. Now, I promised you I would give you Thursday's guest, and it's a good one. Darren Beattie will be coming back to the podcast here on Thursday. He has been absolutely key in uncovering so much about the January 6th pipe bombers. He's got his finger on the pulse. He is plugged in. This guy knows his stuff, and so I'm honored to get him back here on Thursday. He was on a couple of months back, if you recall. So I got his picture right up there behind me there, as a matter of fact. So he's on the board there. And again, look at some of the other guests, right? Eric Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, Charlie Kirk, Nancy Mace, who was on fire yesterday, General Flynn, Mike Lindell, Senator Rick Scott. So please go through the archives of so many of the different interviews that I've done. Check them all out. And please share this broadcast with all your friends. Share the link on Twitter. Share the link on Facebook. Share it on Instagram. Whatever you could do to spread the word, I would be I would greatly appreciate it, I should say. I was stuttering a little bit there like Joe Biden. All right, so that's really all I got for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed it. I know that the news cycle may have already changed by the time I turn Twitter on after this, but we're going to try to do our best to keep up with it here. So God bless all you parents and you listeners out there. God bless our police, our first responders, our military, our veterans and active. God bless America, and I will catch you guys on Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on Rumble with Darren Beattie. Take care.
You're listening to the Alec Lace Show. The future is family.
Promo code FATHERHOOD. Go to mypillow.com and everything we have on sale there. Actually, we brought in the percale sheets. The queen size, $34.98 a set. King size, $39.98 a set. That's unheard of. It's the lowest price in history. And everything else on there that we have, you can save up to 80%. We don't have any middlemen. We don't have box stores and stuff. They canceled on MyPillow. They would cancel my book to get my book out, So use that promo code FATHERHOOD, everybody, and please help us out, and thanks for ones that you have already helped out. And by the way, you'll be helping yourself to the best sleep in history, period.
I got to tell you that mattress topper is the best product I have in the house, Mike, no doubt.
And that turns any bed into the best bed in history. If you got an old bed, new bed, doesn't matter. You put the mattress topper on there, and it changes everything. You need a different input to get a different output. People waking up every day going, maybe my bed will be better tonight. No, you need a MyPillow mattress.